5 or 8 years ago, it was expected that the luxury client would simply adapt to the environment they were what luxury environment they were provided with. Today's world, it's our job to adapt to the environment they want.
Welcome to Luxury Travel Innovators. I'm your host, Adam Deflorian. Today, I'm joined by Gregory Day, President of Hospitality for Manny Brothers. Gregory, thank you so much for joining me on Luxury Travel Innovators.
Thanks so much for having me, and happy to be in the 303.
Yeah, you got to be here in Denver in the studio. What are we sipping here? What do we have?
I'm very delighted to be having one of my all-time favorite cocktails, a classic Negroni.
That's great. And we're using a Denver gin that Chase, who was a former bartender and one of our producers, found and brought in. So we've got all the ingredients. So I hope it's to your liking.
It's brilliant. Love it.
So it's not quite like sipping one on the Malibu Beach Inn terrace at Carbon Beach Club.
Well, you can transport yourself with a Negroni almost anywhere.
Find your beach.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Find your beach.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about Malibu Beach Inn and the history of the property?
Sure. So the hotel, let's start with the physical site. The site actually is quite unique. It's weird because although the hotel physically that we have and we purchased in 2015, it was built as a new build hotel as the Malibu Beach Inn in 1989. But that is not the first hotel on that site. The hotel, or the site rather, I should say, had a hotel previously. It had been a Don the Beachcomber hotel, and it had operated from the 60s until 1975 when it was torn down. And then I don't know whether, knowing the politics of Malibu and what have you, perhaps that's the only place you can build a hotel. 28 years later, new people came along and said, we'd like to build a hotel in this site too, and that's what they did.
Interesting. And then when did you guys acquire the property?
We purchased it in 2015, and we purchased it from David Geffen, the studio and music impresario, he really did. I think he took a lot of care and effort. He did a huge upgrade for the hotel. It had really kind of just sort of been a cheap and cheerful, it was a neat little place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the best thing, at least before we purchased it, the best thing it had going for it was the fact that you're the only hotel that's has direct water access in all of LA County. And a lot of people don't realize that. There's a lot of hotels on the beach or near the beach, but for us, it's 34 steps straight down, and you're in the water. And in Malibu, if you don't have stairs, you can't build them. You're grandfathered in. So very fortunate we had this. So we purchased it from Geffen, and he had put some real money into it. But to be fair, and this isn't a slight at all. He hadn't done anything to it in about 8 years.
Okay.
So we purchased it, and the owners. Another whole story about how I got involved in this, but the owners had a real desire to make it a luxury product, and it needed a lot to become a luxury product, and sort of figuring that out, and also having the owners allow me enough time to do that, because a lot of people come in, they buy the hotel, and immediately they want to start doing A to Z things. I'm a big believer that the hotel sort of has to come to you, and you have to understand what the hotel is. Mm-hmm. Anybody can take a space and force it to be something, but typically those things don't, maybe not always work out the way you hope they will. The hotel, you have to kind of understand how the hotel or how the building responds, and you can't always kind of shove that square peg into a round hole.
Makes sense. And so Manny Brothers, was this the first venture into hospitality, both hiring you and buying the property?
Yes. So as you know, I worked together for many years. I was the longest ever general manager at Shutters on the Beach, and I think they probably didn't want that experiment to go on any longer. So so not necessarily with me, maybe, but I think everybody else has been 2 or 3 years. But I was very happy there and had a really lovely time there. But the Manny Brothers came to me and said, "Hey, we like to talk to you, and we're interested in starting a hospitality division for our company." And my first question to them was, have you been in hospitality before? Well, and the answer was no. And I said, this is a terrible idea. You don't want to do this. This is not what this will break your heart. There are so many ups and downs in this business, and it's a volatile, business. It looks great from the outside, but on the inside, there's a lot of, sort of pain and suffering that goes along with it. Somehow, though, here we are 10 years later, and, we've got, 3 properties and 17 short-term rentals, and the rest, as they say, is history. But yes, MBI Malibu was our first venture into hospitality, and I think we learned a lot from that project and process for that project that we've applied to the other ones.
Interesting. And where are those other properties for the listeners?
So we have a property in Napa. We purchased the Embassy Suites in Napa, and I think a lot of people hear Embassy Suites, they have a certain idea or ideal in mind, and that probably is fair. But we purchased it because it sits on 9 acres in downtown Napa, and that's just a lot of real estate, literally, that you can do a lot with. It sits on Napa Creek, which unfortunately sounds a lot better than it is. It'll be better by the time we're done with it. But there was a piece of property on the other side of the creek that we also purchased, and it had an entitlement already on it for 46 keys for a. It could be mixed use. We're not going to do it that way, but it's effectively a townhome project.
Okay.
But we're going to use that and apportion it to the hotel. So the hotel, we've been actively engaged in complete, gut and redo. It will launch as a brand new downtown resort on January 5th, and it will be called Casa Mani Resort at Napa Valley.
Okay. And are you guys then operated, or is it?
No, we thought about it, and so to your question, logical question, we own operate Malibu, and it's a very proudly a leading hotel of the world. And I think when we started this, we thought we'd own and operate everything.
Yeah.
When we purchased the Embassy product, we already had, I don't know, like 15 or 14 years left in the agreement with Hilton. And those things, they're not impossible to get out of, but I wouldn't recommend it unless you really, really, really have a desire to do it. And Hilton's a very good operator, done a great job for us. And so what we've done is we've decided to sort of do a bit of a mixed bag, and it's going to operate under the Hilton umbrella in one of their soft brands under Curio.
Curio. Okay, wonderful. And then your other property, Hanamaui, right?
Yes, Hanamaui Resort. That was a very exciting and still one of our most exciting purchases and acquisitions. It's the old Hotel Hana, which was one of the first 6 initial hotels on all of the Hawaiian Islands. Wow. And it's got a great story and history there. It was built by a gentleman by the name of James Fagan. And at the time, his sort of, after World War II had ended, he really believed in Hawaii and wanted post-World War II families to come and visit Hawaii as the 50th state in the United States. And his sort of big claim to fame was he owned the San Francisco Seals baseball team. Oh. And he would bring them there for spring training. And up until about 40 years ago, the original baseball diamond had been part of the hotel, part of the property. Many owners before us, they had donated it to the town, to the city of Hana. And it's still used. It's used all the time. But there's an annual softball tournament that takes place in the community, and it's kind of cool. That's the old Seals baseball stadium.
That's amazing. Yeah. So that was not an MLB team. What was that?
Pacific Coast League.
Okay.
So, but this was before. I mean, there was Major League Baseball, but Pacific Coast League. This is where, you didn't have the Giants, you didn't have the Dodgers. This predates that.
Okay.
So when the Dodgers and Giants moved together in 1958, the Seals basically became a farm team for the Giants. Mm-hmm. And previously the Pacific Coast League (PCL) had operated as its own. There were like 5 or 6 different baseball leagues that were all operated differently. Major League Baseball, as we know it today, and of course World Series, tonight. Yeah. Dodgers, Blue Jays, take your pick. But it was just a very different world, and it was just such an interesting piece of history and in a way iconography for Hawaii and indeed Maui. So
interesting.
Excited.
Now this property, Black Sand Beach, and you guys purchased some aircraft to be able to get guests to the property, right?
Yes. So speaking of letting the property come to you, great history here for those who are thinking about like, hey, I've got an idea. So so it's been a number of things. For people who don't know it, this hotel has been a Rosewood. It's been a Lowe's. It's been independent. We purchased it as an independent hotel, and we turned it to a soft key brand for Hyatt for two reasons. One, for distribution. Two, is it's a 6-hour flight for me, plus another ways to get to Hana. For those who don't know, Hana is on the east side of Maui. And although absolutely stunning, and the locals in all of Hawaii, not just in Maui, refer to Hana as the last true Hawaiian place. And it really is that. And I don't mean any disrespect to any other part of Maui, but for instance, you could take Wailea. Beautiful. Love Wailea. But if you remember that old Bugs Bunny cartoon where he sawed off Florida, I always think about that, and where you could saw off, Wailea, pick it up somehow and drop it into Scottsdale, Arizona, and it still works. It could never be that way for Hana. Hana's its own complete, unique space. And we were very convinced that since no other owner or operator had ever done better than 55% annualized occupancy, we thought, well, you know what it's missing? It's missing aircraft, because you have to drive the famed road to Hana, which is great. But most people don't want to do it twice. I won't mention who, but two of my owners who were along with me on the site when we went to look in that hotel, we had to stop every 15 minutes for car sickness. There are 450 hairpin turns and 59 single-lane bridges between the airport to our hotel. So if you're not up for that, how else do you get there? So we decided to purchase 2 aircraft. We purchased a helicopter and we purchased a Cessna airplane. And as it turns out, we didn't really need the helicopter. The helicopter just didn't work. So the good news is we were able to sell it, and we didn't sell it at a loss, thank God. But
last thing you need,
right? The plane was really the secret sauce. People did love the plane. The helicopter was cool and unique, but if you've ridden on a helicopter, or if you haven't, it's a lot more volatile than people think it is.
Yeah.
And you get up there, and it was a beautiful jet-propelled 8-seat 429 Airbus helicopter. Beautiful, loved it. And I liked it, but even I, who I fly a lot and travel a lot, even I had a few times where my hand was on the ceiling going, oh dear.
And also, it's luggage is probably problematic on the helicopter, right? Versus a plane.
A little more so if you have a larger family.
Yeah, larger family.
Yeah.
So, and makes sense. And then, so pre-Shutters, where we met, and what was your hospitality background? You've been in the industry for a long time.
35 years, which is crazy. I hadn't actually thought about that until I got your sort of prospectus of what we were going to talk about. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I have to go look it up. And so, a lot of it's not, terribly interesting. Some of it is. I think to sort of hit the highlights, I did start off in sort of, a small branded hotel. I started off at DoubleTree.
Okay.
Now, this is before Hilton operated. It was its own brand. And I had nothing to do with the hotel or hospitality industry, nor did I have any inkling this would be something I might want to do. I actually was a paramedic on the Monterey Peninsula. And I was dating somebody at the time who worked in the hotel industry. And I was this is so many years ago now, 35 years, you got to think about this. I was at a New Year's Day football game. And back then, every college bowl game was played on the same day. So it's a long day. And, alcohol was involved. You've got to pace yourself. I'm not sure I did. I'm not sure really what happened. But somehow on Monday, I ended up interviewing for the assistant coffee shop manager at the DoubleTree Hotel in Monterey. I took a $15,000 or $18,000 pay cut, and that's how I started in this business. And somehow I kind of fell into the rest of it. Pebble Beach Resorts was my first stint in luxury hospitality, where I really understood, oh, wow, this is unique. This is completely different than the other things I've, done thus far. And I was with them for 5 years, 2.5 at the Inn at Spanish Bay and 2.5 at the Lodge at Pebble Beach. And then I had my first mentor in the business. He was my GM at the time at the Inn. I didn't know it, of course, at the time, but he ended up being the president of the company later. Okay. And he was just a very fascinating guy. And his mother had been a general manager when he was growing up. And I'd never even heard of a female general manager. I thought this was fascinating. And he had lived in all these amazing places. And he spoke 5 languages. He had been a bullfighter in Mexico when he was 14. And I'm like, man, I'm just like, a git from California. I don't know anything. He was a really fascinating guy. And I really realized what this could be a career. And he actually was the guy that after about 5 years, he's like, you got to leave. And I'm like, are you firing me? And he's like, well, kind of in a soft way. He goes, look, you're, 20, whatever. He goes, this is a place for people very young and very old. He's like, you're no longer either. He goes, you're going to have to get out and see other parts of the industry. And he helped me to get to Fairmont Hotels and Resorts. And again, this was, long before, I guess they're owned by Accor now.
Yeah.
I was with them for 14 years in multiple cities and countries and jobs, and it was a wonderful experience with them.
Completely different than the Lodge.
Oh my God, completely.
So he was right.
He was right.
Yeah, and it's this industry. Once you get into it, you don't leave because it's extraordinary. But almost everybody gets into it through serendipity or just chance. It feels like everybody I talk to.
I think you're right, and I think I think there's 2 things. People ask me a lot. I always, offer sort of complimentary mentorship for people. A lot of people reach out. I'm not very good at LinkedIn, but when I get, sometimes I'll respond to somebody 3 months later. But when I do, it'll be somebody like, hey, I'm thinking about getting into this business. What do you think? And I'm happy to give them sort of my unvarnished thoughts. But the reality is, the first thing is if helping people isn't in your DNA, this is not the job for you.
Totally.
And I can relate back to that. Not that I thought about it that way, but as I've got a few years on me now, in a way, there was almost no better natural progression than going from being a paramedic to working in the hospitality industry. Although I'm not saving any lives here, clearly, although maybe with this Negroni, this is pretty good. I am helping people, and I'm helping people have a better, portion of their life, even if it's for only 1 or 2 days.
Totally. And you from the utmost of care to hospitality, which makes perfect sense, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about your guest profile? If we go back to Malibu Beach Inn for a minute, how has it changed in recent years? Has it remained relatively similar to when you started almost 10 years ago? What's the sort of evolution of the guest profile at Malibu Beach Inn?
Yeah, I think it's evolved a lot in the last 5 years, to be quite honest with you. The first 5 were pretty static. We had sort of, we were this, 45 to 65 demo, typically married, although we don't have any, I don't know why people would bring children, but they do, and we're happy to have them, but a lot of families. 30% of our business was international.
Okay.
Of that 30, probably 70% of that 30% was UK. Mm-hmm. Then it sort of falls into your typical Western Europe and, France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, et cetera. Always did fairly well in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, for sure. What's really happened in the last 5 years since the pandemic, which it's so strange to think about, that was 5 years ago.
Yeah,
it
insane.
Seems like, lifetime ago. It was pretty recent. And I think hospitality has changed pretty dramatically in 5 years. And as such, so has the demographic, not only for Malibu, but for everybody. But as it relates to Malibu, you really have a little bit of a different client. Your client's a little younger.
Okay.
And we have a far greater number of aspirational clients than we had previously. And you really notice that there aren't as many, and I'm using air quotes here, boomers that you had probably 5 or 8 years ago. You have a lot more of, our generation, Generation X and millennials, and even some Gen Z. And a lot of that, it's really changed my view on what luxury hospitality is in the last 5 years. And if I were to explain it previously, and I came obviously from a fairly corporatized background, and even at Shutters to some degree, although we were a very dynamic and, Tom and Ed, them, very well, they are such wonderful people. Tim, they just have a real hospitality mindset, but they still do it. I don't mean this disrespectfully at all. They still do it in a very sort of corporatized fashion. They have a sort of a pretty long, launch pad where today, in today's world, you've got to be able to adapt really quickly to how these things change, because what somebody wants out of their experience in a luxury experience is no longer, there's nobody sitting in a room full of, smart people deciding what people want, in the business. Luxury to somebody today is time. And it is, look at how much time people spend on social media, how much time they spend, more people work outside the office today than inside the office, or at least half and half. And you have to be able to adjust to that and to adapt to that. And if their level of hospitality is, or luxury is that, hey, I want to be able to work on my laptop, outside on the same table on the terrace all day long and just keep the Negronis coming or whatever it might be. Yeah. Great. We'll do that for you. No problem. I grew up in a world where, we would never allow, men in tank tops, right, out on, even if it was a beach hotel. Yeah. Those days are long over, right? It's no one's business. No one cares. Whether it's how you dress, how you decide to spend your money. It's your money. It's your decision. And I think in a long list of sort of analogies, I would say that 5 or 8 years ago, it was expected that the luxury client would simply adapt to the environment they were what luxury environment they were provided with. Today's world, it's our job to adapt to the environment they want.
Interesting. So from chameleon, where you're supposed to blend,
100%.
to you guys needing to actually be that because you need to adapt.
Exactly. And you've got to be and this is the hardest part for, I think, everybody. When you're working off a script,
yeah,
it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Well, because you have, kind of what the cadence of things is. When you have to adapt and somebody else.
That's the hard part.
You bet.
Right.
Because if this person wants something different than this guest, it's the same period of time. They're both here at the same time.
Yeah.
But you have to deliver 2 different experiences simultaneously with excellence, and each of them who are experiencing this are going to decide whether or not that fits their expectation of luxury.
Totally. Yeah, that's actually a very good point. And that's when hospitality feels good. When ultra luxury hospitality is done well, it's personalized beyond what's your pillow menu.
100%.
That's so. Yeah. And I think I saw something, speaking of LinkedIn, I saw an article on LinkedIn recently where somebody said, and again, no disrespect to Four Seasons, but Four Seasons is sort of becoming the new Ritz-Carlton. And all of these luxury kind of growth, so to speak, independent brands are following and becoming the new Four Seasons.
100%.
And then what guests actually want are these really extraordinary individualized experiences that, whether it be folks that I've spoken to, Francesco from Aqua Expeditions, or these once-in-a-lifetime or Awasi Lodges, or these or Bailey Lodge, or Malibu Beach Inn, right? These very interesting, individualized, personalized experiences that they just can't provide at those large brands.
Yeah, it's true, and it's ironic, isn't it? Because the bigger ones, they have theoretically the scale to do anything.
Exactly.
Right? That's the irony of it.
And the capital.
And the capital, yeah. Right? And, you and I were talking about this a little bit, off camera, but I just feel like, and I'm not necessarily Four Seasons or any particular brand, I'm just saying writ large, I think the brands, they've just they're just slowly but surely stripping out all of the soul that made those brands what they were. And they may seem small and inconsequential. And, little things like, okay, I was at the hotel I'm staying at, by the way, fantastic fitness facility. I'm a fitness guy. I never miss a day. But I know I've got to bring my own bottle of water that I'm paying for, because no one provides bottles of water anymore. Right. And they're going to tell you that it's because of the environment. It's all nonsense, right? Yeah. There are plenty of bottles out there that are made with, a
boxed water,
100%
or metal,
you bet.
Yeah, glass.
And it's just a cost-saving exercise. Yeah. And it's honestly, that's not what the guest wants. The guest they want a bloody bottle of water. Yeah. And, it's like at our, in Malibu, we moved some time ago to these, and I'm all for it, these aluminum bottles, right? And we've got the fill stations around the property. But if somebody, okay, we give them their bottle, whatever, and some people will fill it up with the fill station. Some people just simply want another bottle. I'm not here to police their, water consumption or how many bottles of water they want. And I realize I'm kind of going off on a tangent on bottled water, but I think it's just like one sort of, I think that's something everyone can relate to, is that when you go into a hotel these days, like getting a bottle of water, it's almost like getting an upgrade.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
It's kind of crazy.
Well, and at the same time, resort fees are going that way. So you got resort fees, which are supposed to include the water and the newspaper, and then the actual amenities go down, but the resort fee still climbs.
So yes, and so I told you we've got a soft brand opening January 5th with Hilton. Hilton's, again, I'm not here to run Hilton's business, but as an owner, we have certain says. There will be no resort fee. We don't do resort fees in Malibu. It's just not. Look, charge the extra $2 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If the rate's got to be higher, it's got to be higher. But you can't. I don't know what a resort fee gets anybody anymore. When I worked, the first place I ever worked back in the day in Pebble Beach was I'd never even heard of resort fee, and this was back in the early '90s. But the resort fee, I think it was $25 per person per day. I could be wrong, but as I recall, though, and this I know for sure, no tips were accepted. This resort fee was distributed evenly to all of the tipped employees throughout the resort.
Got it.
So doorman, bellman, concierge, everyone got a cut of that. So no one was dipping into their pocket all the time.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I was like, wow, that's kind of neat. I've never seen that before. And today, what does this resort fee get you? It gets you internet. Okay, well that's generous. I mean, who can live without the internet anymore?
Yeah. Totally agree. So that's a perfect transition for me right into technology and AI, which is everywhere, and probably at where you're at right now, you're probably hearing a ton about every single thing about AI.
I just texted a couple of people from our team. I'm at the American Hotel Lodging Association conference, and I was on the exhibition floor, and I would have to say a full third of everything out there is AI related.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And of that third, I would tell you from experience and looking at all of their technology, less than 5% are actually AI.
I agree.
Everything else is my thermostat has AI. Okay. So, or they're focused on completely the wrong thing. So that's neither here nor there. But anyways, what are your thoughts about AI in hospitality, how you want to consider using it, both operationally and from a guest acquisition, like marketing perspective? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm still, to be very honest, I'm still learning about it. I'm very pro the technology piece of it. I do think that anybody that thinks in the luxury side of the business that AI will replace people, I think this is a stretch I just don't think so. It might make some people's jobs easier, right? And ideally that's what you want, is you want some sort of hybrid connection where it makes the guests, it's all about friction, right?
Yeah.
And you want as frictionless experience as you can for your guests. And frankly, you want that for your staff as well, right? And, filling out like a chat bot. It all started it was very interesting, and this is a huge leading hotels supporter and fan. If I had my way, all of our properties would always be leading. I've been with them for a long, long time, and they do an amazing job. I was first on the sort of checklist when they launched their AI program 2 years ago. I was one of 10 hotels that was piloted for their program, which was really their chatbot lays on top of your, and you help with that. You guys help with that. And ironically, but as I'm sure you recall, by the time we got this, because it has to be trained, and by the time it was all rolled out, it was already obsolete. And so it's all changing so quickly. And I even think of the chatbot in a way as a little bit of friction, right?
Yeah.
And so today, you're seeing technology and there's lots of it out there. You guys have partners that you're working with that are doing this. I won't name them all, but there's many of them out there. But where it doesn't have to be typing it in; it can be speaking.
Totally.
It can be a drop down box, things that are less friction for the guest, and ultimately helps to get them. Maybe it doesn't. certainly doesn't cut out the necessity for a human interaction, but it helps by the time it gets to the human already knows what you want. How many of us have sat on, look, I'm a Delta guy. I'm have great status with Delta. They take great care of me. But when I go on to, even their 800, dedicated line, and I give them my confirmation number, my last name, the first thing they ask me, last name and confirmation number. Like, what the hell did I just do? I mean, I just told your AI bot. But so that's the piece. I think those, just as an example, those things that have to be, sorted out and to make things a little smoother. I think there's a larger likelihood that, from a marketing perspective, that it's going to be. That's where I think the game change is going to be. I don't know that it's going to be so dramatic at the on-property experience. I mean, it could be, but I think that at least initially, I think our ability to market, capture that market data, give us better understanding when we're talking about whether it's digital marketing spend, why is, example, why does digital marketing, writ large, why does that perform so much better than paid social, right? And paid social does have a ROAS, return on ad spend, but it's nowhere near the level of
what we run on the paid media. Yeah.
So, but there has to be a reason for that, and I think those types of things,
machine learning
can
and
hopefully figure this out for us.
Yeah, 100%. Also, I think so. Operationally, my thoughts around it from everything I've explored, right, is leading. The hardest part, of course, is training people, or people development, right, is the best way to put it. And in order to get those personalized recommendations, if you can implement AI correctly, both at a PMS level or a CRM level, you could provide the data to humans to be able to better service your guests, right? And so I think there's potential there. Then on the booking side of things, of course, what we're working on, I think you've seen some exploration with our team on, is around being able to, especially at more complicated hotels, where it's what's the best accommodation for a family of four, best room for a family of four. It provides options based on a set of dates. My kids are 7 and 5. Okay, great. Based on the ages of your kids, here are a bunch of activities that we think you might like. We've checked availability, and here's a return of that. Then gets into dining and spa, right? So it's this full itinerary builder. But you're absolutely right. It still doesn't replace human beings. It never will, right?
I don't think so.
So, yeah.
I hope not.
Well, I read this morning, literally, otherwise we're all going to be in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw this morning, right, there's already pullback. I mean, I see it every day, but I saw a very interesting article this morning about a massive AI pullback in terms of most CEOs of organizations have said that it's only cost them more money, and it hasn't reduced their effort amongst people and as well as developers. And that's in technology companies, right? So it's interesting.
Well, I think one of the things that, and you look, full disclosure, obviously, we're a client and have been for several companies for over a number of years, but that's also not by accident. We don't give up our partners too easily, but they're partners for a reason. And one of the things I think that you guys have always been at the leading edge on, even not just AI. I know AI is the topic at the moment, but it's always about what's the next thing and how do we help our client get there. And what I've always kind of appreciated about it is that it's not, a lot of people we work with, a lot of other partners, it's like, okay, this is going to be your new thing, and this is what you're rolling into. And you guys have always taken this, I think slowly thoughtfully is probably the better word, but slowly and articulately, where, you're helping your partners understand why they might want to head in this direction and helping them understand the value of it. And look, I was a late, maybe not an adopter, but I don't think I really understood the power of digital marketing. And I'm still a print guy. I read print. That's what I do. It's just who I am. Yeah, but you simply can't. I just had this conversation with a partner of ours we use for print a lot. And the question is, why have we reduced our spend so dramatically? And I just said, look, I can't. You can't definitively tell me, how much revenue I'm producing off of this, right? And there are there are always going to be, print positions that we're going to take because they're the right positions for us to take.
For the brand. It's a presence.
Of course. And because that's a luxury piece too, right?
Totally.
But that's almost to this point where you're saying it's kind of like, giving the guest, the free internet. you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And then we spend the real money on the side where we actually understand what our return is and get real data and then make shifts and make changes and work with, your team. And I know I drive them insane, with all my stupid questions. And because I want to learn. I don't know
Totally.
it all. And I want to understand. I not only do I want to learn how to do it better, I want to understand so when I'm speaking to my partners, to my owners, they can, I can speak intelligently and they know, at least have some idea that I know what I'm talking about.
Makes perfect sense. Not to bring us down, but I'm curious because we've been your partner for a long time, and obviously I think there's been a lot of bad luck regarding fires.
Yeah.
Most recently, the Palisade fire. It seems like you guys can't catch a damn break. And so I'm curious, with this most recent, most devastating one, you're still not where you were pre. And what do you think? I mean, where are you going?
At the risk of I'll sort of paint the picture, set the table. And I wouldn't normally do this, but I don't think there's any risk in me in doing this. I usually don't just give up, proprietary information. But at this point, there's no reason not to. I'll give you an example. So this year has been a really miserable year. Mm-hmm. And to your point, there's just been no good luck. August was our best year so far. I can't imagine that, November, December are going to be better. August was our very best year, and best month, excuse me. Yeah. And typically that July or August is typically our best months anyway for the hotel across the 10 years we've owned the property. So August this year happened to be our best year, and we ran a 63% occupancy at an average daily rate of, let's call it $900. Okay. Now that, to some people, might not sound so bad, right? I mean, I still actually, I was number one in RevPAR in my comp set, okay, which is great. But conversely, if you look at the prior year in 2024, we ran 91.1% occupancy at an ADR slightly above $1,350. So guess what? It's really difficult to make the money we used to make. And this is not your fault, obviously, but you guys are, this, you are living this with us. We spend, and as Chase just gave me my data a week ago. So, hey, congratulations, you spent more money last year to make the same money that you made last year in digital marketing, and it's taken me a long time to kind of get my head around the fact that's just the way the cookie's going to crumble. Yeah. So, it's not great. But I don't know why. I have no data that points me to this, and that old expression, "In God we trust, all others bring data." I have no data to support this, but I really do feel like we're on the precipice of something kind of going our way. Okay. And 2026, I am very confident that we will be better in January than we were this last year. But yes, having 2 fires back to back within 30 days.
Not ideal. Not ideal. And it has development on PCH. I know so much of it got wiped out up until Moonshadows.
It's pretty bad.
It's just bad.
To be honest, there's just no good news in that story at all. Mm-hmm. The thing I always tell people, though, and we're spending a lot of our time, whether it be on podcasts or interviews or reels or stories or TikTok. If you got up to what we call Eastern Malibu, which is us on Carbon Beach, if you got there and you were blindfolded, and you didn't know anything had happened, you'd never know anything happened. Yeah. We have binoculars in every single guest room. Every room faces the ocean, as you know. You cannot, with those binoculars, see any damage. Okay. So, yes, you've got to drive through these, now, it's all been cleared. Mm-hmm. It's still very sad and very devastating, obviously. But, and all that will have to come back, at some point. But once you get up to us, everything is
business as usual,
yeah,
fairly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Restaurants are open, shops are open, new shops, in fact. I mean, they've opened 3 restaurants, which I'm really excited about because this means the restaurants actually believe what I believe, which is it's a blip, it's a bad blip, but it's not a permanent situation, and they feel confident enough to sign 10-year leases in a new development that Jay Lux has done up in Cross Creek, mm-hmm. and you got Pura Vida from Miami. Nice. You've got Clark's Oyster Bar, which is really a great spot. You've also got it'll be opening a little later. You've got one of your guys' more favorite restaurants is Madeo. Medeo's opened a second location
Really?
in Malibu. Yeah.
Wow. And
Yeah.
you could, but in theory, right, you could come 101, come down Canaan, Las Virgenes, and you would have no idea.
Well,
right?
yes, that's true. You would, to be really transparent, you would see some fire scar on either side.
Okay.
But even on PCH, although it's about 6 to half dozen, it's about the same distance and time. You can come PCH or 101. You're going to get there, and once you're there, it's incredibly pleasant.
Yeah.
We've really focused on the 101 though since the fire,
Right.
And we've always been a drive market hotel to a degree. But we always, I'll be very honest, we took it for granted. We really didn't spend a lot of time marketing to it. And that's really shifted our focus into anything north of Malibu and specifically in the San Fernando Valley.
Yeah, so great staycation, great place to come from a distance.
100%.
It's just a great place. And you have new restaurants, you have new things to do, the pier's open, activities are there. It's the place to be still.
It's a beautiful spot. And I always tell people who, really don't know LA so well. A lot of people think of or they like to think of Malibu to LA what the Hamptons are to New York. Yeah. It's not really true. It's really more like Malibu is Montauk, to New York.
Yeah.
And I will point out that no one seems to have a problem driving in traffic 3.5 hours, to Montauk. It won't take you nearly that long to get from Santa Monica to Malibu. So come on out. The water's fine.
I love it. I love it. Well, Gregory, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate
My pleasure,
it.
indeed.
It's a long time coming, and so I always end with the 3 rapid fire questions.
Oh, it's rapid fire.
And they're rapid fire.
Okay.
So, what personal travel are you most excited about next?
Oh, this may not sound very exciting to anybody who's listening or watching, but it's this Friday. We're my wife and I are headed up north. Our son is at University of California, Davis, studying biochemistry, and this is Parents' Weekend.
Oh.
So, or for us, maybe it's going to be Parents' Day because it's the first day of Parents' Weekend is on Halloween. He's already told us that he has plans. But that said, I'm super excited about that. I mean, there are other trips we're taking, but that's the one I'm most excited about.
Davis is a fun town. I mean, Danielle's went to UC Davis Law, and so it's great. It's fun. I love it. What do you miss about the glamorous days of travel?
How long do we have? There's many things. The easiest thing which I just don't understand, it's not very hard, make some sort of effort, in your appearance. Like, I realize we all can live our lives in our world, and that's fine. And there are lots of, I'm not here to disparage anybody that wants to wear their sweatpants or whatever, but a little effort goes a long way.
Yeah.
Right? You can still wear, sweatpants if you want on an airplane and still look good. You do not have to put it to a point where, you look like you might, be in a shelter.
Got it. So tank top is okay at Malibu Beach Inn, walking
Totally
on the
fine.
beach, but when you get on the plane,
You know what? I don't even mind the tank top on the plane as long as maybe there's a scarf, maybe there's a nice pair of trousers. I'm not here to judge in that sense, but a little effort goes a long way. Do we all need to wear flip-flops? I don't think so.
No. And then when you have to take them off when they tell you to, that's just
foul.
Yeah. What innovation in travel doesn't exist today that you think is missing? And it doesn't have to be technology. I think my favorite one is still Jan from Rocco Forte, and he said, I just can't stand that the luggage stands in the room are too small, especially when you're traveling internationally and your suitcase goes flying off of it.
Okay. So now that you said that, I'm going to have to give you 2 answers. I'm going to start with the suitcase piece. Jan's absolutely correct on that. But the second piece is also on the suitcase deal, there almost needs to be, or on the luggage rack, one of the two, because everyone makes this mistake, particularly like the bellman. Even our team does this at all 3 properties. When you're putting the luggage on the rack, don't put the wheels facing the guest, right? Because they open it up and they lean to put forward to get their stuff out of their luggage. Now they've got the wheels all over their pants, right? Yeah. Or their legs or whatever it is. So that's one. The other one, I think it is technology. I think there needs to be, and I know there are elements of this that exist today, but they aren't very smooth. They're not really the best out there. But there needs to be some sort of simultaneous translation, programming where in real time, if I'm speaking English and I'm in, Singapore.
Yep.
That this maybe that's a bad example. They speak English there,
English.
but
I got you.
Chengdu. That it translates into Chinese and back and Mandarin and back and forth, and that does exist with you've got AirPods that do this now,
Yeah.
but there's a lag, there's a delay.
Yeah.
I think something like that would be. When that happens, that's really going to be a neat thing. Because I think there's so much that everyone. There's more that brings us together than in travel than separates us. Right now, the only thing that really separates us a lot is language.
Totally. Well, and this is like something I've said probably on half a dozen of our, I think 21, 22 plus episodes now, is that the world would be a lot more peaceful if more people would just travel it.
Absolutely.
Because then you have empathy for other people, and then you also realize that we're all just people.
Absolutely. And look, this is not a rapid fire question, but my 10 cents to anybody listening that does not have a passport, it's not hard. Get one. It's $130.
Yeah.
I just renewed mine. That's what it costs. It'll tell you 6 to 12 weeks. I got it in 4 days.
Yeah.
I did not pay anything extra
Maybe
for that.
not now with the shutdown, but
No, this was the shutdown.
Oh, this was the shutdown?
Just happened.
Wow, okay.
I'm not. As a matter of fact, my wife pointed it out to me. She goes, "You realize your passport's going to expire like in 3 months?" I was like, "Oh, criminy!" So
you need 6 months. In a lot of countries, you need 6 months on the expiration. Yeah.
So, which I obviously didn't track very well, but I applied fully thinking this would take forever. I got it in 4 days.
That's incredible.
And look, to your point, get out there. Start small. It doesn't have. You can go to Mexico. You can go to Canada, and then go further afield. These little things will help you understand how the rest of the world actually lives, and we will all live better in it.
I totally agree. Thanks, Gregory. It's a pleasure.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for watching this episode of Luxury Travel Innovators. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. See you next time.